Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to another episode of Light 360. Hope you guys are doing good. I see some people already joining us. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us for another powerful show today. Today is going to be explosive. It's going to be really, really powerful. I have a guest that is going to be coming on today, and it's going to be a really, really inspiring discussion that we're going to be having. So I want to welcome you all. Please, once you get on, just help us spread the word by sharing this, share this post, share the video to your network. Also like it and just spread the word. We're broadcasting now on YouTube, also broadcasting on Facebook, 2 pages, and also broadcasting on Twitter. And I'm excited to say we're now broadcasting on Instagram, simultaneously too now. So really excited about that. So please spread the word, spread the word, spread the word. People can watch on any of those places using my handle, pastorland.com. You see it scrolling right there underneath the screen. So at Pastor Land. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Don't forget that you can interact with us as we start our discussion. You can participate in it. So if you have a question, you have a comment, please go ahead and do it. I will show relevant comments. Also, we're going to get to a point where you can ask our guest today questions, relating to what we're discussing, and he will be very, very glad to address your questions. So I want to thank you for joining us. So we're going to roll right ahead because we have a lot to cover today. So as I usually do, I would like to start again by just reiterating what the purpose of Light 360 is. Light 360 is simply a show that is designed to fulfill that passage of scripture in Matthew chapter 5, where Jesus said, "You are the light of the world." So basically, what we do is that we look for people. Light 360 is light 360 degrees, so light all around. So we just scan and look all around within the Chicagoland area, around the world, and look for people who are shining as lights in their spheres of influence for Christ. And we bring them on to tell their stories, or we bring their work on, review their books, or something else, and just use that to inspire more people to shine as lights in their spheres of influence. And since we started, this is season 3, we have had a lot of guests coming from different places, nations, different part of the United States, and they've shared inspiring stories that a lot of people have written to us and have told us have really inspired them as they move on in their own callings and spheres of influence. So excited to do this. My name is Gregory Lan Ijuwola, and I'm going to be your host for today. So with that out of the way, let's get into what we're going to be doing today. So I want to introduce to you our guest for today. He's the person right here on the screen, the person of Pastor Jonathan Banks. But let me just give you some idea of the person that we are going to be having this discussion with today. So I remember the first time I met Pastor Jonathan Banks. We had a meeting. It was a meeting of different churches from all around Chicago, leaders from churches from all around Chicago, and then we went to the Apostolic Faith Church in Bronzeville. And I remember just meeting him then, and he spoke, And then, after a while, he took us on a tour. I just kept on wondering, who's this young man? Number one, who's this handsome young man? And then, I always love, I love people who are they put together and they are passionate about God stuff, And I could see his passion as he was sharing with all the leaders and, just sharing about the work, the outreach work and the different things going on and showing us the beautiful building of Apostolic Faith Church. And I always make a note in my heart, I'm like, that's somebody that I need to know. That's somebody that I need to connect to. And I remember I went on the internet then and added him as a friend. I think it was the next day after I met him that I added him as a friend on Facebook and, been interacting. I've seen him, make comments. I remember times when we traveled, for the Leading Lights training internationally, and he will be making comments, encouraging comments and all that. And then we're having the Leading Lights for youth training, one of the summer camp that we usually have. And the team told me that they would like to bring Pastor Jonathan back. I said, yes, I love that. That's going to be great. And he came, that day I could not make it because I had I think I was doing some stuff with Willow Creek or something. And he came over and the report I got from my kids were part of it too. And from everyone about the impact that meeting had on them was just tremendous. And well, since that time, I've been following him, watching his ministry, his advisory work with Together Chicago, and just all the different things that he's been doing in the ministry. So I'm so excited today to have him on this show. So excited to have him. So Pastor Jonathan Banks is motivated to see people thrive by challenging them to grow and inspiring them to rise. He actively serves his church and community and strives to help others reach their God-given potential in every area of life. Pastor Jonathan earned an undergraduate degree in engineering. Wow, that's something we have in common. I also have an undergraduate degree in engineering. We're going to have to talk about that. How do engineers get into, into missions and ministry in engineering from Purdue University? And he also has an MBA from Northwestern University. So I'm going to need to listen to that story, how you went from MBA in such a prestigious university. And of course, I believe that God deserves the best. So God deserves the best. God, God looks for people, even though he doesn't look for our qualification, but God looks for people who have demonstrated skills and excellence in certain areas. You remember when Jesus wanted to pick his disciples, he didn't go to the synagogues to pick his disciples. He went to the seaside and saw fishermen, business people. He saw, Levi, the tax collector. He picked people. And when he wanted to write the, 2/3 of the New Testament, he picked Paul, the apostle, who was, renowned in his own field in what he did. So just, excited about this. I'm going to be asking him some questions about that. He's the author of a best-selling book called Raise Your GPA, which outlines a faith-based approach to academic and life excellence for students. And his own academic and tutoring experiences helped him to form an effective approach to success that he willingly shares with the next generation. So his passion and his heart is the next generation. And that's going to be, the core of our discussion today. And, he's a passionate leader, an educator who serves his church and community in Illinois, where he resides with his wife, Jacinta. I hope I pronounced her name well. You correct me if I didn't. And their teenage son. So he's the father of teenagers too, just as I am. So we have a lot in common. We have a lot to discuss about today. So I'm so excited. Pastor Jonathan, if you just, just search a little bit about him on the internet, which I did, I was able to just get some things about him. His website, raiseyourgpa.org. If you guys can put it up there also, raiseyourgpa.org. so that people can check it out. You'll get to know a little bit more about him, the author and the speaker. So please, check it out. RaiseYourGPA.org. Also, he also served on in the Urban Outreach Foundation, which is also Urban Outreach Foundation. So check it out. Just check it out, and you'll find out more about him. You'll find out more about him, there, and what he does. We're going to talk a little bit about Urban Outreach Foundation. And then while I was, searching, I happened to just, see some of the things that I've been reading about him on the web. Like that's him. Just talking to some ministers. And it was written that Pastor Banks, an elder of the Apostolic Faith Church, explains their program, addressing community need to the Lake Region pastors. So mention those pastors. The pastors meet with prominent Chicago leaders to discuss community engagement. So that's part of, the kind of work, that he does. And then also I see some things about, at the UIC, where he was one of the speakers for the early outreach programs class of 2018 at the commencement, and it was a commencement speaker there. So we have somebody who is excellent with us today. So that's just a brief introduction, and we're going to get to know more about him as we move on today. So without wasting any more time, people are ready. Welcoming you, Pastor Jonathan Banks. I want you to light. Did I lose? I thought I lost my signal. Can you hear? Well, so people are watching you. I need computer is in having so, but we'll fix it now. So let's see what I'm connected to. All right. Okay, something is going on with my computer, but it will be cool. It will be cool. Just give me a moment and just refresh this. Okay, great. I think I'm back. All right. So yeah, so people are welcoming you, and I want to welcome you. Thank you for joining us for Light 360 today. So let's start. Yeah, they tell me I'm going in and out. So please just let me know in the comment. I think my internet is is behaving somehow today, but God is going to help us fix it. All right. So Pastor Jonathan, welcome to Light 360 one more time.
Pastor Lan, I am overjoyed to be here. Huge fan of yours personally, your wife, your ministry, and of course, City Light Church is a shining example of a blessed congregation, great leadership, and committed congregation to Chicago and beyond. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to have you. I know you're a very busy man, and I don't take it for granted that you're able to give part of your time to do this. I honor that, and I really I respect that. And like I shared, I honor the work you do. I have observed you, I've watched, I follow, and you are doing excellent work. You are doing excellent work in the city, and I'm so glad to be a co-laborer of yours in the city. So let's get into our discussion for today. A little bit. Let's start with you. I gave a little bit of your biography there, but I'm sure there's a lot more that people can can hear and learn more about you. So let's start with where you were born.
Sure.
Just a little bit of your background.
So I am not from Chicago. I'm from the Philadelphia area, born in North Philly and grew up in the South Jersey area. Interestingly enough, I did not grow up in the church. The first time I ever remember being in a church building was for my father's funeral at age 13. And then really, I've only been in church twice before my 18th birthday. But I'm so grateful that at Purdue University, there was a small campus ministry that was led by a pastor that was very passionate for Jesus. And after hearing his preaching, I gave my life and heart to God. And it has been a phenomenal faith journey these past few decades. And God has just been so kind to me, generous, benevolent, merciful. I can't talk more wonderfully about God and his greatness and grace towards me. But I'm excited, and I've always been inspired by great pastors and leaders. I've had 3 pastors in my lifetime. My current pastor, Bishop Horace Smith, of course, who leads Apostolic Faith Church, has been a leader that has sharpened me, has stretched me, and has believed in the Lord's gifts in me, whom I love with my whole heart, has been a blessing to my family. And we continue to serve at Apostolic Faith Church. I was on staff for 11 years. But I'll back up even before that. After graduating from Purdue, I came to Chicago and I served at Kraft Foods as a food engineer. And my running joke is that I did things to food that no one should ever do to food, Pastor Land. God created food. And even though I'm grateful for all the chefs and things, people don't need to engineer food, even though I do know that we're accomplishing some great things. So I served at Kraft Foods for about 10 years as a food engineer. You mentioned that I was a part of Northwestern University Kellogg School of Management, where I received my MBA. After doing that, I went and worked for a commercial real estate group and served companies like Whirlpool, Motorola, Bank of America, really the Fortune 50 and Fortune 100, being in rooms with the CEOs, CIOs, CFOs of these major multinational corporations. And always humbled that God would allow me an audience with these great business leaders. But as looking back, I believe that God was just preparing me to serve the real champions of our community. And those are our pastors, our religious leaders, our nonprofit leaders. After leaving that commercial real estate opportunity, I served on staff at AFC for 11 years as the ministry director. And just recently, I joined Urban Outreach Foundation as the chief operating officer. I still serve at Apostolic Faith Church as often as Bishop Smith will let me. I love my church, love my community, but now the Lord has opened up a door for me to serve churches around the city and really across the country with great coaching courses, curriculum that allows them, their congregations, and their next generation to grow. One last thing I'll share is that I am not married. I am happily married, because there is a difference, Pastor Land. I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Happily married now 24 plus years to my wife, Jacinta. We are the proud parents of 2 sons. Justin is our younger guy. He's 18, a freshman, has had straight A's his entire life. And our older son, Jonathan, is about to graduate this year and has been accepted into a PhD DMD program at UIC, where he will have a dual doctorate, PhD in oral sciences, DMD as a dentist degree, and our younger son is an aspiring cardiologist.
Wow. Awesome. Wow, that's excellent. You just gave me a whole lot of things that we're going to talk about today. But let's go back a little bit. I want to know what led to your transition from corporate America into you talk about church ministry, and that's a church-based ministry. How did you, because you were working in corporate America, you were meeting with all these people and doing all that, you went to Northwestern from engineering. By the way, which kind of engineering did you study?
Agricultural engineering.
Agricultural engineering. Okay, awesome. That's like Pastor Olu. Pastor Olu also studied agricultural engineering. Yeah, so I studied electronics engineering and electrical. So, okay, so what informed that? How did you move from that into church-based ministry?
Dr. Lane, I'm sure you've got countless examples of God preparing you when you didn't even know you were being prepared. Shortly after coming to Chicago, I started working with multiple ministries within our church, but I've always had a heart for young people. And I've always, even at Purdue University, I ran the tutoring office for the minority engineering program. And so here I am tutoring the hardest of the hardest classes at Purdue: biology, physics, chemistry, the hardest math classes, calculus and beyond. But when students would come to the tutoring center, they weren't just hurting academically. Many of them were hurting spiritually. They were lonely, depressed, some of them suicidal. And we wanted to be able to provide additional answers for them. So I would run back to the ministers at the church that I just got saved at, and I would ask them those hard questions. And they let me know later on, as we developed friendships, that when they would see me coming, they would hide. They would hide around the corner because they knew I was coming with very serious, life-challenging questions. But it was because I had a passion for those college students, and ultimately started working and overseeing our young people as a volunteer at my church. As our church grew and as my responsibilities grew, our church administrator, Bishop Smith's wife, and Bishop Smith asked me to come on as a part-time basis just to serve as our youth coordinator. I did that. And then as I grew in my career within corporate real estate, I wanted my career to grow to support the senior leaders of our organization. The organization wanted me to do more transactional real estate, actually doing the deals. And for all the young people out there, I share oftentimes, I have held checks in my hand for $3 million. Now, those checks did not have my name on them, but those are the type of transactions that we're doing for these multinational corporations. Because they had a different vision for my career than I did, I ended up leaving that position, was already working at church part-time. And after praying, discussing with my pastor, there was a position in our church, the ministry director, that when I figured out what that position was, in my heart, I said, God, when I retire, I would love to serve you in that position. I didn't know I would be that person's replacement.
Wow.
And so God, I believe, plants seeds of destiny in all of our hearts. I believe that he prepares you through assignments that grow in responsibility. And when others may see you as some type of instantaneous blessing or overnight success, as they call it, God is always working in the background, preparing you, creating the desire and the preparation for you to excel in those areas. Plus, I also believe that my pastor saw possibilities in me and sacrificed and planted seeds in my heart and gave me opportunity to grow.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to ask you a question about the difference between corporate America and working in the church setting. Some differences that you saw, maybe, advantages or some things that, you feel maybe could make the church more effective. But I just wanted to comment before you go into that I really love the way you show honor to your pastor and the people that have impacted your life. I mean, I always look for that in anybody that I meet. I know that anybody that talks in a bad way about their leaders and all that, that person is, there's just something that is not okay with that. So I always, just try to note that and try to point that out, because I think that's a great quality. The same thing when Mark was on by 360 last week. So the way he talked, even Dr. Fielder, the way he talked about the people that impacted him and touched him with respect and honor. So I know, just with that, I know the kind of person that you are, because of this honor and respect that you show to Bishop Horace, who is a mighty, great man of God, in this city that I honor greatly. So thank you for modeling that, for people and for the young ones. So tell us about the difference, between corporate America, working in corporate America and working in the church setting.
Well, Dr. Land, I am curious. How transparent do you want me to be, sir?
As much as you want to be. Just feel free.
Sure.
Give it to us raw. Give it to us raw,
Oh, well, there is a difference. And I teach the difference between being real and being raw. So yes, if we want to go raw, there are a lot of similarities, especially when you deal with excellent leadership. And as you already mentioned, I'm grateful to serve at AFC. I'm grateful for Bishop Smith. I have never met a more driven, passionate, prepared person of excellence. And at AFC, we don't believe in people worship. We all serve God together, but we do believe in honoring leadership. And we believe in recognizing the God-given roles, responsibilities, and mantles that God has placed in our lives. When I worked in corporate America, I learned from my pastor. My pastor is co-vocational.
Yeah, it's a
It's
job.
a relatively new term that's kind of replacing the term bivocational. I don't know any pastor that's bivocational, any pastor that only has two areas of significant roles or responsibilities. There are multiple areas that every pastor of significance will touch, will sow into, and will serve. And so our pastor, of course, you know, he is a practicing hematologist, pediatrician, oncologist, in addition to being our senior pastor for over 40 years. But he also serves on multiple boards, from World Vision to the city of Chicago to different organizations. He's actually on the board of Together Chicago and others. So that with people of excellence and people that love God, there will always be opportunities to serve. I do believe in being focused. You can't spread yourself too thin. But I believe that he learns from those different areas that he serves in, and he passes those leadership lessons along to the leaders at our church. So even when I was in corporate America, I was learning from my pastor how to operate in excellence, how to lead with dignity, transparency, authenticity. Oftentimes in corporate America, the goals of the organization can be more easily digested because you're typically producing a product or you have a financial goal. Oftentimes when it comes to nonprofits and churches, there are times where the goals may be a little bit more ambiguous, or people believe because there's more peer leadership that my thought or opinion is equal to yours. Now, of course, in the kingdom, everyone has their part, but we would be foolish to think that everyone's opinion and thoughts are on the exact same level. It's not because anyone is more important to the kingdom, but the eyes are different than the ears, are different than the elbows, are different than the toes. I certainly appreciated Life 360 yesterday when you talked about followership and leadership. I learned a lot from that lesson, but it built off of the lessons that I've continually learned from my pastor and great business leaders. I've learned from great leaders in the kingdom of God, the leaders that we have around the city, like yourself and other great pastors, and how they lead their organizations. But the true difference I found is that oftentimes you've got people in corporate America that buy into the vision and give 100%. You've also got people in corporate America where it's just a job for them, and they really are not passionate about building others up and pushing the organization forward. You're the same way in the kingdom. And I think that the way that we can kind of improve that is through maturity. Certainly sessions like this where they can glean more from leaders is really twofold. It's the exchange of information through teaching and through really through courses, but there's also a passion exchange where you're around a passionate leader and you can really begin to burn with the same flame for excellence and for God to release his glory in whatever area of the kingdom you're serving in. You get both those things from great leadership, which hopefully results in great fellowship and great results. So
thank you so much. Wow. So talk about some things you learned from corporate America that you brought into church ministry, because I noticed something about you. You are an excellent person. Even your communication is excellent. You know, I wish I could talk like you, you know. Very precise. I mean, you communicate very well. And I read your book. You are a great communicator. And I just want to know the trainings that you got, apart from the one you got in church. Like, I mean, of course, MBA, Northwestern, awesome, Purdue, and all that. But just tell us a little bit about your upbringing, like how you got to where you are right now, the different influences, impact on your life, and how you got trained to be an excellent person, an excellent minister. Yeah.
Well, I'll share with you, and I know that you and I have shared on a number of levels, but I haven't been able to really explore my entire background. I happen to be bi-ethnic. And I share that term very specifically because I believe that there's only one race of humans on the planet, like Paul expounds in Acts 17, of one blood, God made all of us. We are all descendants of Adam. Consequently, we are all descendants of Noah, even though we have different ethnicities. My father is African-American, very similar ethnicity to several of those that I serve with. My mother is first generation German Jew. So her parents in the late 30s fled Hitler when he came to power and they came to this country. There were 4 last boats out of Germany, and my grandmother and her husband, my grandfather, were on one of those last 4 boats that left Germany for this country before they shut down and locked everyone in. And so I'm not ignorant of the fact that on both sides of my genetic lineage, there's been hardship. There has been, great trials, tribulation from slavery, the Middle Passage, and then ultimately growing up in the South. And then, of course, my mother fleeing really a terror in the Hitler regime and others. My parents, unfortunately, were not really prepared to have a healthy marriage. My parents split when I was 5. And as I was looking for identity, I learned through individual sports. I was a regional champion gymnast. And so I learned personal excellence. And I understood that even though we competed as a team, when you compete in gymnastics and other sports like that, it's really between you and the equipment, you and the high bar, you and the floor, you and the pommel horse, and you control your preparation. And you can always make sure that when you perform, you're merely displaying the hours and dedication and preparation that you put in behind the scenes. That has to deal with corporate America. That has to do with communication. That has to do with ministry. That having a spirit of excellence should never be isolated to religious or church activities. You can't be excellent in church and sloppy in the world. You can't be schizophrenic like that. How you are in one area typically is how you are in every area. Now, I'm not saying that the areas where I have strengths and have developed proficiency in resonate in every single area of my life. Of course they don't. But you tend to operate in excellence, and you tend to value those that have similar propensities when you strive to serve God with your best. So here I am growing up in the church. I can phonetically read Hebrew. I had a bar mitzvah, had a confirmation, but I knew that there was some part of my life that was not connected to God. And really, when I learned about God's love to humanity through the Jews, through the person of Jesus Christ, and him revealing himself as Emmanuel, as Yeshua, as Jehovah has become my salvation, God opened up my faith. And it is now out of the debt of love and of sacrifice that I try to serve him with the best that I have. Even before I got saved, I was under tremendous pressure through spiritual attack, through mental health. I was sad, depressed, sometimes even suicidal. Love and passion that God has put inside of me and that you see right now is out of gratitude. I love God. I serve him. I reverence him. And I can't wait for others to experience the joy that I now have and the power of his spirit, his redemptive grace, and just the life that he has for us to live on this earth, not to mention the promise of life to come. I just believe that young people today, families, communities, churches, they deserve our best, Pastor Land. So that's what I try to do.
Wow. Awesome. Wow. I didn't know that about you. That's very interesting. Very interesting. So with that kind of a background, plus your corporate background and everything, tell us how you were able to integrate that to ministering in the inner city. And then while you are saying that, just tell me your journey of discovery of your purpose. Like, how did you come to just narrowing down to the fact that this is what my purpose is on earth, which is impacting the next generation, connecting them and all that?
Well, I do also want to honor my wife, who is my, my backbone, my strength. She is a true partner in ministry. When our sons were young, my mother's a 35-year teacher administrator in the Philadelphia School District. So I do believe that God has gifted me with the gift of teaching. And it was honed by learning from her and other great teachers, including religious as well as secular teachers. we were having a conversation one time about our sons preparing for school, and they were quite young. And she asked me a question. She's like, well, Jonathan, who do you think is really going to prepare our sons? And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's why we send them to school. She said, no, Jonathan, we prepare our sons. In that moment, God used her to speak to me to understand that I had greater power in our sons' formation than I originally thought. And ever since then, I have partnered with my wife and others to make sure that our sons had opportunity to grow into their full potential. Typically, as leaders and when having young kids, your kids tag along all the time. So even though my kids always had some electronics, I would always have a workbook for them that was the next grade up. So if they were in second grade, I would give them the third grade math workbook and say, hey, you know what? Do a lesson in here before you do your electronics. I'm not saying you can't play with your electronics, but just make sure you're sharpening yourself as well. We've always made sure that.
I'm so excited that my son is watching this right now. He's the one manning the Instagram. So he's hearing this message, you got to do that. Yeah, go ahead.
And to be quite honest with you, Pastor Lan, it was also out of a small fear, not a fear that I believe was given by the adversary. Fear is, in fact, a human emotion. It is a God-given emotion that we use to keep our family safe. The reason we experience fear is so that we carefully prepare and that we avoid dangerous situations. Now, I do believe the enemy tries to give us the spirit of fear, that paralyzing, agonizing fear, but that's not the fear I'm talking about. This is the God-given fear that when you look over a cliff, you're like, wow, I should move aside, or you see a car coming, you pull your children away. I was godly afraid of my sons facing their futures unprepared and not being ignorant. My family, are people of color. I happen to be bi-ethnic. My wife is African-American. My sons are African-American. My sons are taller than me. And so even my mother taught me, Jonathan, you know who you are, but when the world sees you, they're going to see an African-American man, and that's going to come with pluses and challenges. I know that my sons in certain scenarios are going to have to work harder to prove themselves, are going to sometimes be dismissed as being not capable or not able to perform certain opportunities. So I made sure that we promoted a spirit of excellence in our household and had transparent conversations, not so they would be afraid of anyone or any situation, but so that they were prepared. Here's one thing I did with our sons that activated, I think, part of my purpose is that Pastor Lan and Dr. Lan, I never checked their homework. I wouldn't double check their homework. I would triple check it, but I said, listen, this has your name on it, not mine. And if they would ever bring their homework to us with silly mistakes, missed answers, I would let them know, hey, if you have too much flexibility, too much free time, we can take away some of these distractions from you because really you've got to take personal ownership. And they did, Pastor Lan. That coupled with the fact that as God began to open up my ministry, began to preach more at our church, teach more at our church, preach around the city, there was a young man that came up to me one time and said, Jonathan, can I tell you something? I'm like, sure. He said, wow, your ministry is really impressive. God is really using you. And of course, I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if he heard that latest sermon, or man, the last time I taught, man, God really blessed. He said, when I see you with your sons, that really moves me. Wow. That floored and crushed me, Pastor Lan. That let me know that people were watching me because they didn't always see families investing in the next generation. And then as I began to serve in youth ministry and serve on staff, people would bring me their children to fix their children. And the one thing that I would tell them is, number one, your daughter, your son, they're not broken, but they may not be excited about the future that they see for themselves. Let's pray. Let's discover their gifts, their purpose, and then they get motivated and you ignite spiritual identity and you activate spiritual curiosity in their heart, then they will go above your expectations and they will exceed your wildest hopes for them. That way, you're activating purpose in their life. And that is what turned me on to my purpose, activating purpose in the next generation.
Wow, that's awesome. That is awesome. A lot to learn from that. I'm going to be talking to you about that. I have two sons too, and your sons are, I think they are older. My first son right now is a junior, so they're going to be applying for college this year, and next year going to college. And then I have one that is in ninth grade. So I just I love what you talked about, and the same issues that you were talking about just excellence. You do your stuff, you finish well, you autograph your work, you make sure that you are the best. They are doing great. Of course they can always be better, but proud of them and all that. But I wanted you to, go ahead. You have something that you wanted to say.
I was just going to share that even in our household, I'm very grateful that on particular assignments, our sons have done extremely well. There have been some assignments that have been challenges, some B's, some C's, even worse.
Yeah.
But when it came to their report card and their semester grades, they've always come home with A's. Now, here's the thing, Pastor Land. We've never required straight A's from our sons, but I demand A effort. Yeah. I just want you to give God and your family your best, because then God does not need straight A's to open the doors that he will open for you.
Yeah.
He doesn't need that. His arm is not short that he can't save. He can certainly grant you favor in opportunities, programs, colleges. But at the same time, when he opens those doors for you, and you want to honor God in your work, because it's a sense of glory for his name, not just getting a letter grade on an assignment, but it shows the fact that you're committed to the mantle and the opportunities that he's going to open for you.
Yeah.
And the last thing that I'll say on that is that one of the greatest gifts that you can give students and the next generation is confidence. And to know that their confidence is in the Lord and in the gifts that he's put inside of them. Many of our young people suffer with lower self-esteem. Our daughters suffer with lower self-esteem. They wonder, are they worth it? Do they have value? And when you can help them see the fact that not only do they have value, but that God is counting on them to shine in their current situation, and then he's preparing them for an unlimited future, then they will begin to buy in more and become a partner in their education, not just a cog in the wheel. It's their education. And when they buy into it, then you'll see them exceed even your expectations and wildest dreams. My sons have already blown past even my hopes for them. And it's because I believe that they see that God's future for them is so bright.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think we need to look more into that and talk more about that parenting sons aspect of your story, because I believe it's something that a lot of people would like to hear about. They would like to know more about it. So I want you to just tell us, you've told us some things already. I don't want you to go, if you don't mind, just tell us, what are some things that you learned from parenting them in this environment? Just like you said, Black boys and, some stigma, attached to that, some danger attached to that, right? Now, what are some things that you have learned about raising boys, raising sons, and then maybe you can apply it to raising kids, general, for excellence?
I'm going to give you my biggest revelation first. Well, I'll give you the top two. The first one is, if you have not connected with your students' why, then they will be less than a full partner in their own development. Here's what I mean by that. We know what we're preparing students for. We know they've got to be prepared academically, financially, spiritually, holistically. They've got to have a spirit of excellence. They've got to have tenacity. They've got to have grit to be able to compete globally. Think about it. Let's digress for just a moment. Nowadays, you can go and you can get a logo for your new business on Upwork or some gig economy for $5. And you've got a student that is sitting in Russia, China, Africa, Kenya, and they can develop a logo sometimes better than the person down the street. And so you're no longer competing regionally. You're not competing nationally. You're competing globally with those that are hungry for their future and
Yep.
hungry for opportunity.
Mhm.
And so your young people have certain desires.
Mhm.
And so I always like to couple the young person's desire with a parenting principle.
Yeah.
So if my sons wanted to have a certain piece of clothing, even though my sons right now are 18 and now 20, Pastor Land, my son just turned 20. I knew he wanted an Apple Watch for a while. But I waited until he graduated high school to buy him that Apple Watch for graduation. Why? Because it was a shared goal. Now, almost all of his friends had it. He didn't want for anything. He had plenty of clothes, plenty of this, but I wanted him to be able to aspire to something. Now, he could have also saved and bought it himself, but I wanted to reward things that I knew were meaningful. And I'm not saying hold off on things. I'm saying find out what's important to them.
Yeah.
Is a certain article of clothing important to them? And I'm not saying bribe them. I'm saying help them appreciate that I'm going to work with you. We're going to get this together and that we're going to kind of prioritize.
Yeah.
My son wanted to have a job because he wanted to have a little more discretionary funds. I said, listen, if you commit to extending your academic streak of straight A's through your junior year, that is going to be what colleges look at when they look at your application.
Yeah.
Because really for the top colleges, it's your first 3 years. They don't look at your senior year because you've already applied.
Yeah.
Do you realize that if you get a full scholarship, including room and board, that will be the equivalent of about $160,000?
Yes.
I don't need you down at Subway earning $8 an hour and have your grades come down and forfeit some of that $160,000. So we partnered and say, what's important to you? How can I help you achieve that? And also honoring. I am not gifted musically. Both my sons make music. One on the saxophone, one on the trumpet, one raps and the other makes beats. Yeah. Now, while I may not put a lot of value behind that, they love that part and they only express themselves in faith terms. Their raps are clean. They're about Jesus. Their music is inspirational. Why would I squash that? So I can't say you can't express your gifts. You can only do what I want. No, I say, hey, let's do both. Let's give glory to God through your gifts as well as prepare them for a future that they don't know. So that was number one, understand their why.
Let me ask you something about that one, before
go
we
ahead.
Go to two.
Go ahead.
Maybe I'm wrong, you can correct me because I'm learning from this. I use blackmail sometimes. So I know what they love, right? I know what they love. I know, for example, my first son is an athlete. He loves sports. Even my second son to soccer and all that. Sure. My first son is volleyball. He's in a club and all that. Yeah. And I know that if I just leave him, that's what he's going to be doing. So I use volleyball as blackmail. Yes. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to drop you. I have to drop him off at the games. My wife and I will take him, for the games, for the practice and all that. I'm saying, okay, now if you got to do this, you want to also do this, we love it, we enjoy doing it, but you got to do this one. You got to finish this book. You got to do that. Is that a good method?
I think it's a phenomenal approach, and I would just encourage you to maximize that in this vein. Make sure that your sons and your daughter believe that there is no greater champion for their success than you, and let them know that you love them enough to help them prioritize what's going to unlock their future. And so, yes, my sons came to me. My one son wanted to take a trip to Disney with the band. My other son wanted a new saxophone. Those were not my priorities, but I let them know that if you're willing to commit to giving God your all and to making sure that you're achieving the goals that we set as a family, these are the words I use for them. I will move heaven and earth for you. There will be no greater champion for two reasons, Pastor Land. Number one, losing my father at 13, I would give anything to understand if I had his approval or if he was proud of me. I did not want my sons to believe that their performance was tied to anything that had to do with my love or pride for them. Because like I do, there are a number of men and women out there that are messed up because they were never, they thought that their parents affection, love, and concern was conditional to their performance.
Yeah,
And just like our Heavenly Father shows us grace,
yeah,
I never wanted my sons to believe
yeah.
that they weren't fully supported in everything they did. Now, that love is also manifested in accountability. So here's what I mean by maximizing their why.
Yeah.
After you explain to them what their future is going to demand of them. So if you want to do the sports and the extracurricular activities, explore them. You got my full support.
Yes.
But what is the goal? And this is where I think asking the right questions as parents is really important. Instead of asking them, what do you want to be when you grow up? If you read the book, you know that I think that is the wrong question to ask our sons and daughters.
Yep.
The better question is, what has God gifted you to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
They're 14, they're 16, they're 8. They don't know what they're doing. And here's the scary part. For the large majority of them, the careers that most of our sons and daughters are going to excel in nowadays, they did not exist 10 years ago. So why are you going to ask a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, or an 8-year-old, what do you want to be when you grow up, when they have no clue about the economy that's evolving, about technology? So instead of asking what they want to be, ask what has God gifted you to be when you grow up. Now, instead of looking inside a limited experience, they look outside to an unlimited God. And then they try to hone their skills and resources. And if my sons, which were aspiring in their medical careers, I say, great, well, if you want to be great in these areas, then it's going to take 1, 2, and 3. And because it's your priority, I can now hold you accountable to the things that you've told me are important to you. They're not my priorities. It's not what I want for you. It's not my life. I'm living my life. I'm trying to serve God. You've told me this is what you believe God has for you. So now I can appropriately hold you accountable, not be a slave master, but be a partner in helping you reach the goals that you told me. Then it flips the switch. Now it's not for me. Wait, you want to go to the movies with your friends. Hey, that's cool. But didn't you tell me that you're going to hang out with your friends on Saturday too? And didn't you tell me you had a test on Tuesday? Are you sure that's going to get you to your goal? So it's just a little bit of a different approach.
Yeah, I love that. With my kids, of course, I teach adults about finding their purpose and all that. But what I did was that I did the same thing with my kids. I took them through that same leading lights training. Sometimes we take it while we're in the car. I'm listening to an audio book and all that. I make sure, like on long trips. I remember one where we're driving to Atlanta also, and the whole trip was a training. And so we will pause, and then they had to craft their vision based on what they want to be. They did their 10-year goal. So they know, like what they want to be and all that. So they are passionate about it. So we now surround, I just love those things that you were talking about, the issue of the identity. You never, for those who are watching, you never attach the identity of children or their belief that you love them to their performance. No. It's not, shouldn't be based on performance. God told Jesus Christ, this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased, before he even started ministry. When he was being baptized, by John the Baptist, God said, I'm already pleased with you. Yeah. Just that. So that's the same way we should start as parents. You are already pleased with them. You already believe in them. Even when they do wrong, you start, if I know you're a great guy, I know, this and that. And then that why thing is very important, helping them to know their whys, because why will keep them motivated. Why will, when they face challenges, will keep them going. So I just love this. Thank you.
Pastor Dr. Land, let me encourage your viewers. Yeah. Don't confuse your why with your children's why. Do not confuse them. Yeah. Here's another thing that I raise in the book, or actually more so in my talks, not so much in the book. The Bible is very explicit. It says, if you train up a child in the way they should go, when they're old, they won't depart from it. Yeah. Here's the issue, Dr. Land. Most parents do not train their children. They tell their children. They say things like, didn't I tell you? Or how many times do I have to tell you? And what the children are really screaming is, yes, you told me 10 times, but you didn't train me.
Yeah. Train.
There's a difference between training and telling. You can tell someone till they're blue in the face. That doesn't mean that it'll get in their heart and that they'll want it for themselves. But if you train them properly, just like Elijah and Elisha, they will exceed you and they will stand on your shoulders and they will go farther than you ever imagined. But if you only tell them, then you limit their growth. And then you'll both be frustrated because you won't get into their why and they'll never see their passions activated for Jesus.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about the difference between training and telling? What does training look like? Telling.
Here's what telling looks like. Telling waits until they're disappointed you or that they have experienced a setback or failure. And then there is this hour-long lecture or soliloquy about how you failed and how you've always failed, where training prepares them in advance and helps them look forward to the opportunity. So I remember when my sons were younger and they were asked to do a short speech at church or they would prepare, and I would make them practice 2 or 3 times. But yet when they would come home, they would be like, "Dad, I got the top grade in the class." And so they were activated because they saw the power of preparation. And part of that preparation has to do with asking them the right questions. Jesus, we know, was the master teacher. Oftentimes he asked questions. Who do people say that I am? And he would help them come to the realization for themselves through godly and divine revelation. And he would say, well, now who do you say that I am? So we have to say, so tomorrow you've got this assignment. How are you going to prepare? And give them space. And they say, well, do you think that's going to maximize your preparation and help them develop the mindset of preparation? Training does not happen unless they develop their mindset and their spirit set about the training material. Unless they ingrain it in themselves and develop themselves, training has not occurred. Only it's been just you talking at them. And like the old Charlie Brown commercials, want, 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 want. That's all they hear. But training happens when great questions happen and when there's dialogue and when you ask them and that you don't just listen because you want to tell your next point, hear their heart and then take them from there.
Yeah. One more question on parenting. How did you deal with, or do you deal with discipline? Like this?
Absolutely.
You have to discipline them. What's your approach?
Okay. So my approach is not everyone's approach. I don't expect you to adopt my approach. There are different schools of thought on punishment, discipline, and correction. Through God's grace, I always desired for any punishment to be corrective, not just punitive. So, and I also believe that any correction should never demoralize or, lower anyone's, humanity. I certainly, while I don't believe, I don't advise using profanity. Certainly, if that ever came up, I would never, have that in a relationship with a child. I've also never lied to my children. Doesn't mean I tell them always the raw truth, but I'm never going to lie to my sons because I expect them to always be truthful with me, even though I've certainly caught them in times where I don't believe they've been truthful with me. Discipline when it comes in our household, there's always, while I teach them, like all parents teach them, you choose your actions. You don't choose the consequences. So you choose actions. You don't choose consequences. Unless my children were disrespectful or disobedient, then we began to examine punishment, taking away sometimes of privileges or opportunities, or sometimes, if they had to pay for something or whatever it was. But in our household alone, Pastor Land, if they were disrespectful or disobedient, they made a choice that they were going to get a spanking in our household. I did not make that choice for them. They made that choice. And I was very sincere with them. Now, let me make sure I am very clear. I never spanked my children out of anger. I believe anytime if you
yeah.
pardon?
I say you detach emotions from it. When spanking is going on, there should not be emotions and all that. It's just
No, and again, having sons, and you've met me, Dr. Land.
yeah.
I'm not a very tall guy. I'm a shorter guy. I'm 5'7". My wife's father and all her brothers were all 6 feet. So it wasn't long before my sons were taller than me.
Yeah.
So I don't remember the last time I spanked them because they're big. And I'm sure that even as they were, in middle school, it stopped hurting to an extent.
Yeah.
But I would just let them know that we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
Dad makes mistakes.
Yeah.
And so you're never going to be punished for making a mistake. Sometimes we have to talk about discipline and making corrections.
Yeah.
But if you disobey me,
yeah.
if you go against what I told you,
yeah.
or if you disrespect me or your mother,
yeah.
you have made a choice that
yeah.
I will honor every single time.
Yeah.
Without exception.
Yeah. Thank you.
And that was the rules in our house.
Yeah, very good. Similar rules. So you have a kindred spirit here. So
and the one thing that was great about that was it set expectations ahead of time. And if there was ever a time where they began to get out of line, I could always use our language. And I say, that tone sounds disrespectful to me. So then they had a choice right then and there. That was my warning, that you are at the line, son. Yeah. You can either step back or you can step forward. I'm going to honor your choice every time without fail. You make the choice.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really proud of our kids. I need to say that. I'm really proud of them. Academically, they're excellent. In serving God, most importantly, our kids are involved in the ministry. They handle crucial parts of ministry. Yeah. And, in relationships and all that. They've kept good friends. And my son is now driving. And I remember an incident that took place some weeks ago where that would be the first time I will allow him to actually drive alone with his friends, at night. And he told me, he's like, Daddy, I want to, drive with my friend and all that. I looked and I said, okay, just promise me that you're going to come home, this is where you're going and that's where you're going. I mean, he was shocked, but he told me something. I was telling the mom, and I told him the next day at our devotion, I said, that was so smart of you. He said, Daddy, but if the Holy Spirit tells you that I should not do it, I won't do it. I'm telling you, that's what he said. He said, if the Holy Spirit tells you that I shouldn't do it, that's okay with me. When he said that, I was like, okay, now you got me, because you mentioned the Holy Spirit. So I said, okay, you can do it. And, so that was, so I just wanted to say that. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And here's something that helped parenting, because I mentioned the other, let me share the other parenting tip, and then let me give an example. Yeah. My best parenting moments, Dr. Land, have been organic. They have not been because I designed a lecture or a lesson for either of my sons. Yeah. I didn't say, sit down, let me talk to you about soteriology, or let me talk to you about algebra, or let me talk to you about choosing the right college. Mm-hmm. I was close enough where my son would be doing homework nearby, and then he would take a break, say, you know what, Dad? And again, this is just being very transparent with your viewers, and hopefully with others. Said, you know what? There was a girl in my class today. I noticed that she doesn't wear a lot of clothes, and she kept stretching, and and he brought that up, and then he was quiet. Yeah. And so that was the open door for me to affirm him and say, you know what, son, I appreciate you sharing that with me. Oftentimes you're going to feel things in your heart, and you're going to be curious, and you're going to want to look at other things. Those things are natural. So it gives you the opportunity to affirm them, and then to plant those nuggets and seeds instead of being like, well, you can't, and watch out and everything. No. If you take it to 10, then they're going to think twice.
Talk about it. Yeah. They will just close up, and they won't talk to you about such things again. Yeah.
Right. So your proximity is essential in parenting. Not just son or daughter, come here, let me talk to you. It's being close enough to them so that when it comes to them, that they share it. A youth leader that I work with in Los Angeles once shared this with me, Dr. Land. He said, whoever tells it first is the expert. So if you bring up areas of sexuality, of profanity, of gender identity, of faith, of different religions, if you bring those up first, they will trust you that you trusted them with information and knowledge. If they have to learn about sexuality and smoking, vaping, and other things from their friends, then why would they trust you going forward as a parent if you didn't think enough about them to prepare them ahead of time? Why should they trust you later with those questions? And believe me, Dr. Land, when my sons were in elementary school, before my sons had cell phones, other people's daughters and sons were passing around pornography on cell phones in elementary school. Wow. And it doesn't matter if your son or daughter goes to the most wonderful, amazing missionary Baptist, Pentecostal, Methodist elementary school, they still have some that will pass around things that will damage our children's spirits and their minds.
Yeah.
So you have to have those preparation talks with your daughter or son at the right level. You don't have to break everything down, but to say, listen, you're going to have students in your class that might sometimes have pictures of people that don't have clothes on. You're going to be curious about that. And that's okay. I want you to come tell mommy, come tell daddy. And then also just understand that we don't want to, look at those things and dishonor those individuals. They made a bad choice to take those pictures. Let's make sure that we try to honor God with what we allow and what we look at. So just make it easy for them to digest. You can't always talk about, evil influences and everything. Make it age appropriate. But please, Dr. Land, encourage those that you teach and influence. Tell them ahead of time. Tell them first.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, wow. So powerful. I love this discussion, man. I love this discussion. I want us to just move into your ministry outside of the family now. So, God brought you into that ministry through what he was doing in your life, through in your family, and then you now minister to the next generation. I want you to talk about that. And for the audience, we're going to get to a session right now of question and answer, question and answer. I know you're making your comments and all that, but please prepare your questions and you can please type it so that we can have it ready, for him. So please talk about your ministry now to the younger generation.
Sure. Interestingly enough, Dr. Land, I've learned that ministering to the next generation takes two dynamic and powerful paths that are parallel. One, you have to make resources, curriculum, and passion available directly to the next generation. So I spend time with young leaders, primarily 16 through 35, and I try to pour into them and I try to replicate what God has revealed to me as far as motivational and inspirational strategies of activating and sparking spiritual identity in young people. Remember, motivation is external. Inspiration, the breath of God, is internal. You've got to deal with both with young people and with young leaders. You've got to motivate them with opportunity, with challenges, with struggles, and give them assignments and give them stretch roles. And then there's also the inspiration. You've got to teach them. You've got to pray them through. You've got to help ignite that fire for Jesus and love for God in their hearts. And so you got to do both, motivation and inspiration for the emerging generation. At the same time, you've got to minister to the senior generation. And seniors, really the senior pastors, senior leaders, company executives, 35 and up to 105. You've got to help them appreciate a dynamic I learned from my pastor, Dr. Smith. Whenever we have committees or teams that are working on it, and Dr. Smith, my pastor, is a voracious champion for team leadership. Team leadership is one of the hardest models of leadership, but it was the model that Jesus used, and it is the most effective and the most powerful method of leadership. It's also one of the hardest to get people to buy into. But our pastor, when we come and say, Dr. Smith, we believe that we should do 1, 2, and 3, he says, well, who's working on this? And if your team does not include multiple young people from the beginning, he doesn't want to hear anything about it. because he knows that if you only inform the next generation of what they're supposed to do, they have not bought in, and you have robbed them and robbed us of their spiritual insight and input. They're not perfect, but they will only grow when they are allowed to be close, just like that proximity principle that I outlined earlier, that they have to be close to mature leaders as well. And here's the neat part: they've got energy. Bible says that he called the young because they're strong, the old because they know the way. God is looking for synergistic, multi-generational leadership and synergies as we attack the ailments of our community. In fact, we cannot be successful. We cannot heal the land. We cannot shine a light without generations coming together.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. So, those who are watching, we are moving into comments. You can start putting your questions in there, but I still have some questions for you regarding the ministry aspect. You wrote a book, Raise Your GPA. What led to that book, and what's your goal for that book? And just tell us, just the impact of that book.
Sure, thank you. Raise Your GPA is a faith-based approach to academic and life excellence. And I say academic and life excellence because they're not separated. Young people that deal with sports, that deal with the arts, that deal with academics, that deal with their spiritual growth, they have one cohesive life. And if your spirituality is not relevant in their sports, if it's not relevant in their music, then it's not relevant at all, because spirituality cannot be only for the church building or for a small group environment. They don't see relevance in every area of their life, and they see relevance in no areas of their life. Raise Your GPA, of course, draws their attention because everyone has a grade point average, but they also have a God point average, the things that push them closer to God and success. And when they have a high grade point average, then they also have, Dr. Land, a low DPA, a low devil point average. So we're promoting godly things, because oftentimes for young people, Dr. Land, we say, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. And the young people are like, well, what do I do? We say, don't curse, don't abuse alcohol, don't do drugs. And the young person is like, well, what should I do? So in the book, we explain not only the what not to do, but the why not to do it, because you can't prepare your young person for every single temptation. But if you train their mind in the why they want to avoid temptation, when someone offers that temptation, they could easily go through their list and say, well, Dr. Land didn't say I couldn't do that, or my mom didn't say I couldn't do that. But they say, you know what? I don't want that a part of my life, because it's going to rob me of part of giving God glory, and it's going to rob me a part of the destiny that God has planned for me. So oftentimes I told you, the one that parents would bring their student to fix their kid, say, listen, your son, your daughter, they're not broken. They just may not necessarily be committed to their own success. Let's find out what motivates them. And not growing up in the church, every time we went to the movies with my sons, I would always try to invite a son of a single mother or a single parent to come along. Not because I'm perfect, but because I wanted them to see someone interact with their father, because I didn't have that. And so I tried to say, if I didn't have a spiritual champion in my life, what would I want them to know? And also, losing my father at 13, I knew that there may be a time in my life. Now I'm believing God that I'm only going to be around this earth, Dr. Land, for about 100 years if the Lord tarries. But I know today is not promised. So if God saw fit to call me home, I wanted to have a legacy to leave for them and their children and their children and their children, that this is the pathway of success. I'm hoping that my children exceed me spiritually. But you read just like I did in the Old Testament, and he served God like his father, or he turned away from God. And so for the future generations, I want them to know that God has been kind to me, and that this is the revelation he gave me for success, and to share it with as many as possible. Because I believe, Dr. Land, that as in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s, the kingdom brought attention through miracles, signs, and wonders. I believe in 2021 and beyond, while I will not limit God in physical healing and spiritual manifestation, the next wave of revival spiritually for the church is going to be led by a spirit of excellence in everything, because there are no longer authentic people living out their lives. They're living our lives online through apps. We're having filters. We're trying to live through different personas. When people see godly excellence, young people standing up with their best grades, with winning spiritually, winning through academics, winning through their sports, they are going to be then able to give God glory and point others to Jesus through their own personal and life excellence. So we've got to equip this next generation. They're going to be one of the major engines in drawing people to the kingdom.
Wow. Powerful, powerful. It's a movement of excellence. Awesome, awesome. Yes. So audience, please start posting your question now for Pastor Banks. So I have one question here. One second, please. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How will you address children that grew up fatherless in the inner city that never got exposed to some of these things that you are sharing?
I would.
And what your kids have, because they had a father, they had to do all that. How will you speak to such kids?
Here's what I would encourage that parent, because as I shared, when we would go to the movies or we would, just even watch sports over my house, as best I could, we would always try to pull in some young men. And again, it's because I'm a man. While I believe that in group settings, I can share godly principles with young ladies. The Bible says iron sharpens iron. So I believe young men help sculpt and mold other young men the same way young women sculpt and mold other young ladies. Now, again, in a group setting, we can all sharpen each other. When it comes to one-on-one mentoring, I only mentor young men. I just think it's a respectable line. And so if there were ever other young ladies present, I always made sure there were ladies present and others, just because, of too many opportunities and too many things that we've seen in the news. But that said, it doesn't have to be my book, Dr. Land, but you've got to equip young people with a resource. And I've had so many young adults come to me and said, you know what, Elder Banks or whatever, if I had had this book, it would have unlocked different things. So there are other books out there that you can use, but get a book and read it with that young person and help them, show them others and introduce them and say, you know what, I met this young man, Jonathan Banks. He didn't grow up with a father either. And when I look at those young men and sometimes even young women, I see the tears coming down their eyes because they just want to know that they're loved and that they're cared for. So number one, I believe in single parenting. My mom was a single parent for a lot of the time that she raised me. And God can use that single parent to pour enough love, determination, and power into that young person where their future will not be limited. That said, there's still a hole in their heart from where they would want that love from that parent to be. So affirm that. Don't run away from that. Ask the young person how they're doing. If need be, find someone that is strong in their faith, kind of mentor and counsel them. And then again, at our church and other churches, just like at City Lights Church, there are mentoring programs. Get that young person involved with a mentoring program, some secular, some spiritual, so that they have that sharpening and they can get that confidence that God will use to carry them further. Let them know that, God sees their hurt. He will not neglect them, and he won't limit their future just because they didn't have that particular parent in their life. Parents make mistakes, but the community and the village will rally around those young people and hopefully love them into a blessed future.
Well, thank you. I have a question here. What help do you offer parents and ministries that want to deal with these kind of issues? What help do you offer parents and ministries?
So again, through my new position, I serve as the Chief Operating Officer at Urban Outreach Foundation. And our goal is we equip pastors, leaders, and churches with coaching courses and curriculum. So we really believe in love on pastors and ministries. And of course, the beneficiaries of that are congregations, communities, etc. So I do coaching for youth ministries, for pastors. We do consultation to help them outline youth ministry strategies and plans and programs for their year. We'll help be a second set of eyes and a sounding board for initiatives they want to launch for young people. And then again, of course, we make the book available, Raise Your GPA, available for small groups in bulk discounts and everything. Thank you for the introduction. And you mentioned the fact that it did hit Amazon's new release bestsellers list. It reached their most wanted list. And if you're looking for one book or two books, Amazon is your way to go. But if you're buying in bulk, I would encourage you to go to raiseyourgpa.org and contact me. We make it available at a discount and can ship it straight to you. The book is a great conversation starter. Inside the book, we have flashcards to help the young people remember it. We've got focused guiding questions for small group ministry, as well as for journal area for the young people. So there's no extra workbook you need to buy. It's all built into the book to try to inspire our young people, create connections between parents, youth leaders, and students, and help them all grow forward together.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'll take one more question, before I'll ask you to just share your heart. So this one says, what does multi-generational connection look like? I think it was something that you mentioned. Yeah, what does it look like?
Well, I'm going to flip the script a little bit on you, Dr. Land. Here's what it does not look like. And I alluded to this earlier. What it does not look like is the mothers, the deacons, and the seniors of our churches coming together, formulating a plan, and then expecting our young people to get excited about it. What multi-generational leadership looks like is when you, before you even have the first planning meeting, you ask some of the influential young people in your ministry or in your community saying, hey, who should we have at the table? And then from the very beginning of the initiative, you've got their buy-in and their ownership. God calls them because they're strong. You will not see them lend their energy to any initiative that they don't feel ownership. And here's their buzzword today, agency, that they have agency and buy-in in. So then you also, when you're dealing with ministry or even in nonprofit or secular leadership, make sure the leader of the organization is there and sets the tone of collaboration. So if this was at City Light Church, I would encourage Dr. Land to come to the first meeting and say, listen, every person in this meeting, you're here because you add value. Now, that doesn't mean that you ever act disrespectfully to your elders or in people that have been placed in positions and roles of responsibility, but you create crystal clear expectations that I want everyone's input to be heard and valued. And then if all things are equal, go with the young person's ideas. Now, sometimes those that have more experience, they will have a better idea. But if it's just red or blue, if the young people like blue, go with blue. Yeah. The older generation, we're already here. We're already bought in. So do whatever will draw the young people to be connected and do that and do it 50 times and get as many young people involved as possible.
Okay, thank you. I know I said the last question, but somebody, asked the question here. So can you speak about fear? How can one know if they are battling with feelings of fear versus the spirit of fear? Well, I guess maybe that's related to parenting. Also, the person said, as a leader, how can I make sure that I help the youth grow their God-given purpose?
Sure. Yeah. For every youth leader or for every leader in the church, of course, we know that home is your first ministry. Please make sure that you are taking time with your sons, daughters, grandchildren to share your faith on a personal level. Don't just tell them, well, you ought to, or you have to, or time to get ready for church. I would be on my way to the church building, Dr. Land, and I would pull over and I would turn around and ask my sons, I say, why are we going to church? Why are we going to the church building? Because I didn't want them to just think, well, this is just what we did. I wanted them to understand and connect the why. We're going because God has been good to us. We're going because we want to worship him corporately, similar to how we do it at home, but we want to do it together. We want to offer to God a sacrifice of praise. We want to be a testimony. And by the way, yeah, Dad does work at church, but that's secondary. Thankfully for me, my kids remember when I didn't work at church, and now I don't work at church again, even though I am privileged to serve and lead various areas. I'm glad they have that. But for those that don't have that luxury, make sure your young people know that I am going because I love God, I owe God, and I want to serve God on top of any role. The role is not why I'm going. If not, they'll only go for the role. And unless they're head deacon so-and-so, head elder, or most righteous archbishop potentate, then they won't go if they don't have a position. But it's never been about position. It's always part of your question was, how do, refresh my memory, please, Dr. Land?
So this is the first, this is one. Just to show.
How can they help them grow their God-given purpose?
I think you addressed that, right?
Yeah, I did. Here's something very interesting. Oh yeah, fear. The question about fear. Thank you. Fear is the hardest part about fear is you're always going to have typically both present in your spirit. You're going to have that God-given fear. The Bible even says the fear of the Lord, the respect, the admiration, the awe of God is the beginning of wisdom. So you need that reverential fear that makes you careful and sensitive to approach God. You don't just call, and I believe in some of the ways that we teach kids to pray nowadays, you don't need to be pretentious, but there should be a reverence when you come to God, not just, hey, God, what's up? But, there should be a reverence, a lowering of oneself when you come to God.
Yeah.
That's usually going to be present with you. At the same time, the enemy is trying to paralyze you with fear. So the way that you free yourself of the paralyzing fear is by using the word of God, really audibly, not just in your heart, but audibly activating the scripture. God has not given me the spirit of fear, but, power, love, sound mind, that the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. The Lord is the strength of my life. Whom shall I be afraid? All those scriptures that should come to your mind, that fear will not dominate me. Fear shall not rule me. And that will allow the reverential fear to rise, the paralyzing fear to fall. And I would say to whoever asked that question as well, make sure that you're connected to great leadership, because you can authentically share to your leader, you know what, I'm scared. And they'll let you know, in this instance, no need to be afraid. God is with you, or you should be scared. Now let's use that God-given fear to prepare. Let's rehearse one more time. If you're walking in ministry, if you have the opportunity to make a presentation, put your best presentation forward. Be scared enough to ask someone else to look at it. As young people applying to college, you look at it the first time, you look at it the second time, but then find someone that's gifted in writing, in grant writing, or in application writing to review your application to the Honors College. Reach for that scholarship. Do your best. Put your best foot forward. Watch God open up every door that he has for you.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for addressing those questions and for giving us your time so generously. This has been a very enlightening conversation, and we have to bring you back. So we have to continue, this conversation. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So I wanted to ask you if there's any other thing on your mind for today that you would like to quickly share. Please go ahead and share it before we round up for today.
Sure. I think the one thing that I would encourage, Dr. Land, I think is really in the spirit of Lights 360. And that is that for everyone that is breathing, everyone that has a heartbeat, God is still going to be revealing greater dimensions of your purpose in your life. So don't stop listening to the heartbeat of God. God will not reveal the greater dimensions of his will and purpose in your life until you are prepared to receive them. He's not going to, reveal that part and waste that part of that revelation. So as you grow, don't stop listening to God. Don't stop lending him your heart. Don't stop being open. Don't just believe that you've received the fullness of your assignment. That always honor God in that. When you do that, you can't help but set an example for the next generation and then invite them close. Let them know that sometimes you were scared. Let them see your mistakes, because that way they will then have the courage to try again, because we know they're going to make mistakes. That's part of grace. God is not concerned about their mistakes. He's concerned is, are they trying? Are they reaching? Bible, of course, admonishes us that it is God that works within us both to will and to do of his good pleasure. But if they don't try, God won't work through them. So inspire them to try, continue to listen to the voice of God. He'll reveal greater dimensions of your purpose. Doesn't matter if you're 6, 60, or 106, God's got a plan for your life. So thank you, Dr. Land. Thank you, City Light Church. I'm praying for you and certainly grateful for the connection.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I had another question just come up, but
Go for it, Dr. Land, if you want to sneak it in, but that's up to you.
Let me just sneak that in. You were talking about, when the kids make mistakes and all that, but what about when the adults have made mistakes? Like some of these things, they've not followed it, and the kids are, they are already maybe grown, and, they're already in their late teens and all that. What do you do? How do you restore integrity, or how do you handle such a situation?
Sure. We mentioned earlier about the difference between being real and being raw. Being real means that you are transparent with your young people and really the people in your life that you influence and are accountable to.
Yeah.
That means that you let them know the truth and the whole truth. Doesn't mean always the raw truth. They don't need to know exactly how many times you did it, exactly who was there in the room, exactly, what you were thinking and why, all those things. But you have to be honest with them, especially in areas that they can see very plainly that I made a mistake. I shouldn't have made that investment. I shouldn't have said those things. And because I said those things, I am crushed and I am sorry. And let them see the fruit of repentance in your life. Very often, Dr. Land, I was very honest and transparent with our sons. They know that I got saved at 18. They know that I was sexually active before that. Some people think that you can't be transparent with your daughters or sons in an area that you may have messed up in. So if I, smoked, I can't tell my kids not to smoke because I smoked. That is so false. That is not true. You can let them know, listen, I now understand that I hurt myself, I hurt the other person, and I hurt God. And I don't want that for you. I hope you don't want that for you. And so we can learn from that. And here's how you can avoid some of the mistakes that I made. They want to learn from us. They want to see your transparency. They know that they're not perfect, but if you expect them to be perfect and only bring perfection to them, then they will hide just like Adam hid in the garden. They will hide from you when they make mistakes, when really all you want them to do is come to you. Come on, we can fix this together. We can work through this, but they'll hide from you and they'll experience shame that the enemy will amplify and try to cause division in your relationship. Let them know that you always make a distinction. Like you talked about earlier, Dr. Land, you love them unconditionally. We'll deal with whatever happened. Let's just be honest about it. And so, just make sure that you are transparent. You can let them know what you did. You don't have to let them know this is the color shirt I had on when I did it, or this is why, and oh child and everything. No. Listen, I made some mistakes. I wish I did not, but I would feel like I was robbing you of knowing me and the debt that I now serve God out of. Even though I owe him here, I don't serve him solely out of debt. The major way you serve God is out of love. And so let them know it's okay to make mistakes, that we recover, that we repent, and we move on.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for addressing that. I just feel that somebody was pulling that from the audience, So please, audience, let's appreciate
Thank you,
Pastor Banks for such a wonderful, wonderful time on Light 360. Let's appreciate him. Let's appreciate him. You really shared great insights with us today. You opened up and you've really, really improved all our lives. I have learned a lot. I have some things, that I have noted. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Dr. Land, I learned that you are someone that appreciates systems and that you are a learner. I can't help but honor that. I think that City Light Church is the beneficiary of your spiritual and academic curiosity. You set a phenomenal example that I hope more pastors and leaders adopt, even by bringing in those that may have different experiences and different strengths. It shows such humility and grace as a leader. I'm encouraged for City Light for the impact that you're having in Chicago and beyond, and anything that I can do to add value to the great work that you guys are doing. Please count me in. I'm so excited for you guys going forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I mean, we hope to continue the relationship with you. I see the potentials of it because we have a lot of things that you can speak to that God has prepared you and graced you for. So we'll be talking more about that. But I really appreciate your time. And please let me say hello to your wife and to your children too, for allowing you to spend this time, and also for your kids, allowing you to talk about them and everything. Tell them we look forward to meeting them one of these days. So
absolutely,
thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah. So to our audience, we are going to be signing off for today, and we'll be back tomorrow again with another story. We have Brother Fred Ezeji Okoye is going to be coming in. He's the founder of the Men of Faith Network and also the author of the book Not Without a Head and Who Prays for the Pastor. So I look forward to the conversation with him. So with Pastor Bank today, Pastor Omo yesterday, and Brother Fred tomorrow, I think we have had a very, very amazing, wonderful week. And all these broadcasts are available. You can rewatch them either on my YouTube channel or my Facebook or my Periscope. I think the Instagram one disappears, after 24 hours or so. But you can rewatch them on YouTube. YouTube.com/PastorLan, Facebook.com/PastorLan, Twitter.com/PastorLan. So you can rewatch these things. I actually rewatch them immediately. We finish now. I go upstairs because I'm in my basement now. So I go upstairs. My wife is watching it upstairs. Like, wow, that was good. And I replay everything. And I just listen again and I take some notes. So I want to encourage everybody to do that. So with that, we're going to sign up. Now, everybody have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful night. And Pastor Banks, we hope to have you back, very soon again. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Land.
All right.